She walked into the store to buy a gift and walked out accused of stealing it. The twist? She was a federal prosecutor, the kind who puts criminals behind bars. But in this luxury boutique, they didn't see her power, her success, or her position. They only saw what they wanted to see, and they were about to regret it. It was supposed to be a 5-minute stop. Jordan Matthews, a federal prosecutor with a perfect conviction record, had just wrapped up one of the biggest cases of her career, putting away a corrupt developer who had stolen millions from low-income housing projects. After weeks in court and barely a moment to breathe, she finally had time for herself. So she did something rare. She decided to treat herself. Jordan stepped into an upscale boutique on Fifth Avenue. Marble floors, soft jazz playing, shelves lined with designer handbags. She wasn't new to luxury, but she also didn't flaunt it. Today, though, she wanted one thing: a black Prada satchel she'd admired for months. It was sleek, professional, and strong. Just like her. She was dressed sharply: black blazer, pressed slacks, and low heels. Her briefcase still hung from her shoulder. She moved with quiet purpose, scanning the shelves until her eyes landed on the exact bag she came for. She picked it up, feeling the leather, admiring the stitching. A smile crept onto her face. But that moment, peaceful, private, didn't last long. She caught movement from the corner of her eye. 2 sales associates had stopped talking. One was staring directly at her. The other lifted a store radio to her lips and whispered something, glancing back and forth nervously. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Maybe they're just doing inventory checks, she thought. But her instincts, sharpened by years of courtroom strategy, told her otherwise. Seconds later, a tall security guard entered the room. His eyes locked onto her immediately. He walked slowly, one hand on his belt, the other holding a radio. Jordan calmly continued inspecting the bag. She moved toward the register, but she didn't make it far. The guard's voice cut through the soft music. "Ma'am, I'm gonna need you to put that bag down." The room seemed to freeze. Jordan turned slowly. "Excuse me, you need to put the handbag down," he said again, more sternly this time. "You match the description of someone involved in recent thefts." Jordan blinked, stunned. "I haven't even left the display area." "I'm going to have to ask you to cooperate," the guard said, stepping closer. His tone was firm, accusatory, as if this wasn't a misunderstanding, but a certainty. Shoppers nearby began to look over. 2 people paused mid-conversation. A young man pulled out his phone and started recording. Jordan took a deep breath. "I walked into this store with a briefcase and a federal ID," she said, keeping her tone steady. "I haven't stolen anything. I haven't even touched my wallet." But her words didn't matter. Not yet. The suspicion was already hanging in the air like fog. Then, as if the situation couldn't escalate further, a uniformed NYPD officer walked in through the front door. "Is this her?" he asked the store manager, who nodded far too quickly. The officer approached Jordan. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside." Her heart was pounding now, not from fear, but from fury. Jordan looked around. All eyes were on her. Cameras were out. Employees stood frozen. The jazz music still played, absurdly out of place against the growing tension. She gripped the Prada bag, then slowly and deliberately placed it back on the glass shelf. And then she turned toward the officer. Calm, composed, unshaken. "You don't know who I am," she said. The officer crossed his arms. "I don't need to. You match a description." Jordan reached into her blazer, pulled out a leather badge holder, and flipped it open. "I'm a federal prosecutor," she said. "Assistant U.S. attorney. I prosecute criminals. I don't shoplift handbags." Silence. The kind of silence that fills a room right before everything changes. The moment Jordan flashed her badge, the officer froze. For a few seconds, no one moved. His eyes shifted from her face to the gold federal seal in her hand, and then back again. It was real. Her ID was authentic. But instead of apologizing, he hesitated, as if he was trying to figure out how to walk back what had already gone too far. Jordan's voice didn't rise. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. "I'm an assistant U.S. attorney," she said again, her tone firm but even. "I just came from court. Would you like to see my case file?" She tapped the briefcase at her side. The silence in the store was now deafening. The sales associates looked at each other, panic in their eyes. The manager's arms slowly dropped from his chest. One of them took a step forward and opened her mouth, but no words came out. Jordan continued, eyes locked on the officer. Did anyone actually see me take anything? Or did you assume I was suspicious just for holding a handbag? The officer cleared his throat. We got a call. The store reported. Did they see a crime? But did they just see me? She asked. That question landed like a hammer. In the back of the store, a teenage girl whispered to her mother, "She's a lawyer?" The mother nodded slowly. "No, she's more than that." The young man recording kept his camera trained on Jordan, sensing something important was happening. The officer finally lowered his hands. "Look, maybe this was a misunderstanding." Jordan raised an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding?" She gestured to the entire store. "You surrounded me, accused me in front of strangers, threatened me, called backup, and you never even asked for my name." The manager tried to step in. "We didn't mean to cause offense, ma'am. It's just there's been a lot of thefts lately, and we're told to be cautious." Jordan turned toward him sharply. Cautious is checking receipts. Cautious is watching discreetly. What you did wasn't caution, it was profiling. The manager's mouth opened and closed again. He had no defense. And that's when Jordan took a step back and scanned the room, not to intimidate, but to take in just how deep this moment ran. I've prosecuted everything from white-collar crimes to drug trafficking. I've worked with the FBI, Homeland Security, and the Department of Justice. I walk into federal courtrooms every day with the same bag you thought I was stealing. You don't see my credentials. You don't see my achievements. You just saw someone who didn't belong. That line hit hard. A woman near the entrance gasped. Another shopper lowered her phone, her eyes wide. Jordan wasn't done. "Do you think I've never been in stores like this before? Or is it that you've never seen someone who looks like me shopping in here alone?" No one answered. They didn't need to. The weight of the moment was heavier than any designer bag. The officer, now visibly uncomfortable, glanced at the door. "Would you like me to stay, or—" Jordan looked at him for a long moment, then shook her head. "No, you've already done enough." He nodded awkwardly and stepped out. Inside, the manager began stumbling through a weak apology. "Please, let us offer you a discount, or—" Jordan cut him off. "Keep it. I came here to buy a bag, not my dignity." And with that, she turned, picked up her briefcase, and began walking toward the door. She didn't need the handbag anymore. She had made her point. But what she didn't know yet was that someone in the store had just uploaded the entire scene online. By the time Jordan stepped out of the boutique and into the Manhattan sun, she thought it was over. She hadn't bought the bag. She hadn't yelled. She hadn't pressed charges. She just walked away, disappointed but not surprised. It wasn't the first time she'd been profiled, but it was the first time it had happened so publicly and in her full power. What she didn't know was that her calm, controlled stand had been captured by more than one phone. In fact, one video, a full 3-minute recording from the moment the officer arrived to when she revealed her badge, had already been posted online with a simple caption. They accused this black woman of stealing. Turns out, she was a federal prosecutor. It hit 20,000 views in under an hour. By lunchtime, it was on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. By evening, it had made the front page of Reddit. And by morning, it was a headline, "Wrongfully Accused. Assistant U.S. Attorney Confronts Racial Profiling in High-End Store." The internet lit up. People across the country, across the world, were reacting. Some cheered her composure. Others were furious at how casually it all unfolded. Memes popped up. Commentators weighed in. Legal experts praised her calm. Activists called for boycotts of the store. Even celebrities shared the clip. But what hit hardest weren't the likes or the hashtags. It was the stories that flooded in. Hundreds of women, doctors, engineers, lawyers, nurses, Black, Latina, Middle Eastern, started sharing their own moments of being followed, questioned, doubted, and dismissed. One tweet read, "I was 32, pregnant, and buying a car. The dealer asked me if my husband could come sign. I'm a cardiologist." Another, "I've been shopping in suits and still get asked if I can afford what I'm holding. Thank you, Jordan, for showing them who we really are." And then, Jordan saw it all. She hadn't intended to go viral. She hadn't planned to be a symbol. But as the video reached over 4 million views, her inbox filled with requests. News outlets, morning shows, legal podcasts, civil rights groups. The store? Silent at first. But once the backlash hit, they scrambled. A statement appeared on their social media pages. We deeply regret the experience Ms. Matthews had in our store. This does not reflect our values, and we are conducting a full investigation into the incident. We apologize unreservedly. Too little, too late. People in the comments weren't having it. Apology because you got caught. Where was this energy when she was standing in your store? Train your staff. Do better. And as for the officer, NYPD released a brief internal statement confirming an incident report was filed, but didn't go further. That only sparked more calls for accountability. But while the public wanted outrage, Jordan stayed grounded. When a local news anchor finally interviewed her, she said this: "I didn't speak up because I was angry. I spoke up because I was expected to stay silent. I didn't want to become a hashtag. But if this helps one person walk into a store and feel like they belong, then maybe it was worth it." That quiet strength struck a chord. She didn't just walk away with her dignity. She gave others permission to demand theirs too. The woman who had been treated like a criminal had become a symbol of grace under pressure. The internet had crowned her a hero. But Jordan Matthews didn't feel like one. Yes, the video had gone viral. Yes, millions had seen what happened. But going viral doesn't erase the experience. It doesn't wipe away the humiliation of being seen, not as who you are, but who someone assumes you must be. Jordan didn't want revenge. She wanted reform. She sat at her desk late into the night, reviewing emails from strangers, people sharing their own stories of being misjudged, followed, and falsely accused. Many of them had no badge to flash, no camera to record, no crowd to back them up. She realized this wasn't just her moment. It was everyone's. So she did what prosecutors do best. She built a case. Not against the store, not even against the officer, but against the system that made what happened to her so normal, so expected, that no one in the store even questioned it until a badge came out. First, she reached out to civil rights attorneys she respected. Then she contacted advocacy organizations that specialized in discrimination in public accommodations. Together, they outlined something stronger than a lawsuit, a training initiative. Within weeks, Jordan launched a new campaign. Not just a customer. The mission was simple: mandate racial bias training for retail employees. Require stores to create transparent incident reporting processes. Encourage companies to hire diverse leadership at all levels. And most of all, empower shoppers, especially women of color, to know their rights. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. But it worked. Media outlets followed her journey. Universities invited her to speak. Retail CEOs, now feeling the pressure of public scrutiny, began reaching out privately. One major chain even offered to partner on a nationwide training module. Another asked her to sit on a diversity advisory board. She said no to both at first. She didn't want this to become a corporate PR stunt. She wanted real accountability. But the more she spoke, the more people listened, especially young professionals. In one podcast, she said, "The law can protect you, but it can also ignore you. That's why knowing your rights isn't enough. You have to use them. And if you have privilege, you have to leverage it for those who don't." That line went viral again. But Jordan stayed focused on the real work. She returned to her job at the U.S. Attorney's Office, not because she had to, but because she chose to. The courtroom was still her battlefield. But now, she carried something new into every trial, every hearing, every meeting, a sense of purpose beyond the case in front of her. She wasn't just prosecuting criminals anymore. She was fighting assumptions, challenging narratives, and proving over and over that professionalism doesn't always look like what people expect. Meanwhile, the store that profiled her, it quietly updated its employee handbook. New hires now went through bias training. The manager involved was reassigned. And while Jordan never named the store publicly, those who followed the story knew exactly who they were. When asked later why she didn't sue, she answered plainly, "The law gave me a voice, so I used it. That was justice enough for me." But more importantly, She made sure that voice echoed far beyond a single viral video. It became a movement. Weeks passed. The headlines faded. The comments slowed down. The algorithms moved on. But Jordan Matthews' life was far from returning to normal. She still walked into courtrooms. She still prepared arguments, questioned witnesses, and fought for justice in high-profile federal cases. But there was a subtle shift in how people looked at her now, not just as a brilliant prosecutor, but as the woman who stood her ground with grace and fire in a store that didn't see her worth. For some, it was just a viral moment. For Jordan, it was a turning point. She never went back to buy the handbag, not because she couldn't, not because she was bitter, but because she didn't need it anymore. That bag, once a reward for her success, had become a symbol of everything that was broken. The assumptions, the profiling, the idea that even an accomplished black woman in a tailored suit could be seen first as a threat and only maybe as a customer. One afternoon, as she spoke to a group of law students at NYU, a young woman asked her, "What would you have done if you weren't a federal prosecutor? If you didn't have a badge?" Jordan paused. The question hung heavy in the room. "I don't know," she admitted. "And that's what keeps me up at night." Because that was the real issue. Not that she got out of the situation safely, but that someone else might not. Someone younger. Someone without a badge. Someone without a camera rolling. "That's why I spoke up," she continued. "Not because I was angry, though I was. Not because I was embarrassed, though I was that too. But because silence would have made me complicit in a system that's used to getting away with this." The room fell quiet. Then someone clapped, and another, until the whole auditorium rose to its feet. Jordan smiled, humbled, but still deeply aware of how far there was to go. Her "not just a customer" campaign had taken off far beyond what she expected. Local stores began implementing anti-bias training. A few cities passed ordinances protecting shoppers from racial profiling. Schools invited her to speak. News shows continued to follow her work. But the most meaningful messages still came through private emails and handwritten letters. From young black girls who watched her story online. From mothers who cried watching the clip. From people who said her calm, her dignity, her power gave them strength. One note from a teenage girl simply read, "You show me I can walk in any room and belong there. Thank you." Jordan kept that letter in her briefcase. One evening, walking past that same boutique, the one where it all began, she stopped for a moment. The window display had changed. A new season, new bags, new models. Same brand, same shine. But something was different now. She didn't feel invisible anymore. She felt seen. Not just by strangers online, not just by store managers scrambling to clean up their mess, but by herself. What started as a shopping trip had turned into a mirror, reflecting the harsh reality of perception, race, and power in America. But it also reflected her resilience, her brilliance, and her unshakable poise. This wasn't just about a bag. It never was. It was about walking through the world knowing who you are, even when others don't. It was about reclaiming the narrative. And for Jordan Matthews, that was worth far more than anything money could buy.